Hello, my name is Mason Persons. I use he, him pronouns. I was a youth in the Avenues post-home program, and now I am your host today on this panel. We can turn it over to the rest of our panelists to introduce themselves with your name, pronouns, and how you're connected to Avenues.
Hi, my name is Rami McGeed. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a previous board member at Avenues and currently a medical provider at MA and BA.
Hi everyone, my name is Maya Prime. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Youth Advocate Engagement Specialist for the Connect Host Home program, which means I do case management for LGBTQ+ youth.
I'm Angel. I use all pronouns, and I was a homeless youth in the Connect program.
All right, thank you so much for being here today, you guys. I'm very excited for this panel. Our questions today were brought to us by people who signed up to come to the event. So we will start us off with a group question. It's a big one. The question is from Sarah Kettering, and it is, what are the root causes of homelessness? And anyone feel free to jump in. Big question.
It is a big one.
Very big question, Mason, and there's a lot to tackle in that question. One thing that I think is really important to talk about is the systemic causes of youth homelessness. For example, for Black youth, we find that Black families face a lot of oppression in our country, and we can see that especially apparent in Minneapolis with the police systems and the carceral systems. If you'd like more information on that, there's a really great documentary called 13th that relays some of that information, and all of those effects are directly correlated to the higher rates of youth homelessness that we see in Black youth, and the same thing for LGBTQ+ youth. There are so many problems that we try to tackle every single day in our work at Avenues for Youth, which is one of the reasons why the Connect Host Home program was formed in conjunction with other amazing organizations in the Twin Cities.
Thank you. Yeah, you bring up some really good points. The more marginalized a youth is, the more barriers you have to hop over. So programs like this are really important. So thank you for bringing that. Anyone else? Yeah, go for it, Angel.
I think one of the biggest causes of youth homelessness is the feeling of abandonment, or at least that's how it was for me. Kids nowadays, at least for me, never really got to have that kind of childhood. And parents, they don't realize the kids need the love and support as they get older.
Yeah, thank you. I feel that. I had similar things going on with my own experience in homelessness. You know, people are struggling from their own family traumas and things that they put onto their children. They don't even realize that they're doing it until the kid is gone. So thank you for bringing that. What about you, Rami?
Yeah, I think just to piggyback off of both of those, I think at a high level, it comes back to systemic problems like wealth and income inequity, and inequity for LGBTQ folks, and those are BIPOC folks and LGBTQ folks are disproportionately affected by homelessness or disproportionately experiencing homelessness. And the fact that there is data, like well done research to support that loving, supportive environments, loving, supportive adults in a young person's life protect against all the things that can ultimately lead to having to experience homelessness.
Yeah, thank you. You know, people don't realize that it's a bunch of little things, as well as a couple of overarching big things. We can all understand that those big systematic barriers like racism and homophobia, queerphobia, transphobia will definitely be big barriers, but all sorts of little things cause the homelessness too. And all of those things together add up to big things. So thank you all for bringing that. So Maya, this next question is from you, from Jana Hottinger. How has COVID impacted youth experiencing homelessness, specifically in Avenues?
That is such a great question. And we have seen a really direct and large impact. Shelters across the cities, across the country have been operating under capacity for quite some time now, and it's the same with avenues. And the barriers now for youth to get into shelter are larger. Understandably, for safety, youth have to have a negative COVID test in hand in order to get into shelter, which, as you can imagine, is a huge barrier for getting in. You know, you have to have transportation to get to a COVID test site. You have to have access to technology, access to Wi-Fi to even make that appointment. And these are huge things that slow down being able to get housing and get the resources and support that you need. And in Connect, we find a similar issue with a shortage of hosts. A lot of hosts just don't feel like it's safe to have a youth in their home in this time of COVID, and so we find that a huge need in our program specifically is finding more hosts and more resources.
Yeah, that's super real. And no host is at fault for, having that concern.
Absolutely.
But it does still put another barrier on for the youth. And you bring up a good point too about the transportation and the money that it costs to get a COVID test.
Yes.
All of these little things add up. So yes, thank you for that. We can pass it over to you, Rami. This question is from Chad Hartman. What are the most effective ways of supporting youth experience homelessness in Minnesota?
I think, wow, so probably one of the most impactful ways it could be done would be to offer more supports in the community. So like in the schools, in community centers, essentially hiring and devoting money to personnel who can just provide a foundation for folks who might either are at risk of slipping through the cracks or are actively slipping through the cracks. So whether that's, like I said, social workers in schools, psychologists in schools, mental health providers in all sorts of venues in the community to prevent and then sort of treat if prevention fails. So I think devoting money and personnel to that kind of support is probably where I think that the biggest impact would be.
Yeah, I hear that in my own line of work too, that getting people who are experienced and trauma informed and have worked with people before versus just educated on working with people and having them directly in those areas is really important. Angel, this is a question that we came up together. What was your experience like being in the Avenues program?
My experience at Avenues is not what I expected it to be. I expected them to be adults just like all the adults before. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they proved me wrong, and they became my family. Avenues gave me that. They gave me a family, and I can't be more thankful.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I'm also wondering about the transition process from going from not in the program to in the program and in housing. And now you have your own place. You've exited the program and into your own stable housing. Would you speak more on those transitional periods for you?
Well, for a while it was really scary because I was homeless. I had no place to go, and my social workers and my guardians and everyone had no idea where to put me. And then an adult in my life found Avenues, and then they had this Connect program, and it was perfect for me. And when I got in as soon as I did, I was so thankful because being homeless is a very scary feeling. It's unpredictable and inevitable. You don't really know what's gonna happen. And That's kind of how it felt when I moved out on my own. I was very scared. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no plan. I told everyone I had a plan, but I didn't have a plan. I just kind of went for it. But it all worked out in the end. You know, everything happens for a reason, I guess.
Yeah, I totally feel you. The same thing with me when I was exiting the program initially. Like, there's so many times throughout the process where I thought I had a plan, and then life happens, and one major change happens, and then the whole plan falls through. Do you feel like you still, even though you've exited the program now, do you feel like you still have support from Avenues?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
I have a lot of support. Like, sometimes I need rides places and things like that, and everyone always has my back, and I really appreciate it.
Good, yes. Some of the aftercare of programs like this is one of the most important parts. Like, I think for me, I know that going into the program, that first transitional period is really sensitive. You're coming out of homelessness, and then trying to go into the world as your own adult when you're exiting the program can be just as scary as when you were first entering. So thank you for speaking on that. And our last group question is from Todd Bradalich. With all the challenging realities in our world today, where are you finding hope? Also feels like a big question.
I think for myself, I find hope like in young people who are not waiting for those in power to take the action that's necessary to make change. So young people increasingly, it seems to me, are just saying like, we're just going to do this because we're sick of waiting, and using tools like social media, but it's not all social media based. You know, they're using that as one tool towards the end, but really using the power of gathering people and connecting people and creating movements to get either really specific small tasks done or even like large change done. But yeah, just young people are connecting and making stuff happen.
Yeah, I feel that too. I like that you mentioned that there is social media involved, but it's not all social media based. I feel like in my own experience as a youth and what I'm seeing from other adults is that they'll definitely be like, these kids and their social medias,
right.
But it's much more than that. So thanks for bringing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that my hope comes from, a really similar place as our young people and all of their such inspiring wins, whether it's a youth texting me that they finally landed that job that they were hoping to get, or when our youth are able to find their own housing and really discover those dreams. I'm like almost tearing up just hearing your story in this context, and we get to come alongside our young people every day, and that's really what it's all about.
I think my biggest bringer of hope would be the people that I surround myself with. Like, I have my producer and my best friend and my partner, and they all support me and they all keep me going, and it inspires me to make music and paint and write.
Yeah, I love that.
Beautiful.
It's nice to hear, from the adults in the room that youth give them hope. So it's also nice to hear from a youth. Like, it's hard to give yourself hope as a youth. So being able to be surrounded by people that help give that to you is so nice. Mm-hmm. So thank you for bringing that. All right. Well, that looks like that's all for us today. Thanks so much, you guys, for being a part of this. And that was our panel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and back to Joe.